I never thought a single afternoon could change my life so completely. My name is Alex, I'm 27, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived a double life that no one could possibly guess. On the surface, I was just another young professional working in a mid-sized marketing firm, typing away at spreadsheets, attending endless meetings, and smiling politely at coworkers who never noticed anything beyond my neatly pressed suits and tidy appearance. But behind closed doors, my world looked completely different. There, I could finally breathe, shed the rigid expectations of being just a man, and explore a side of myself that had been quietly simmering under the surface for years. I grew up in a house that valued conformity. My parents were the kind who celebrated birthdays with strict schedules, who frowned at anything that seemed out of place, who believed strongly that men and women had very defined roles. And so, from an early age, I learned to hide my fascination with things society labeled as feminine, the soft fabrics, the delicate colors, the thrill of imagining myself as someone completely different. I discovered crossdressing first in secret, stealing glances at my sister's clothes when she wasn't around, experimenting with the subtle curves of her skirts draped over my body, the strange exhilaration of slipping into shoes that made me feel lighter, somehow more me. By the time I met Emma, everything changed. Emma was not just my girlfriend. She was the first person who made me feel safe enough to even think about sharing this part of myself. She was 26, brilliant, sharp, and impossibly kind, with a laugh that seemed to echo in every corner of the room and a way of seeing people that felt like she could look straight into their soul. When we met at a friend's party, I had no idea that the playful curiosity she expressed in our conversations would slowly open a door I'd spent my life trying to keep shut. At first, I only hinted at my secret, a flustered laugh here, a vague comment there. But over time, I felt a subtle shift in the air between us, a soft encouragement in her tone whenever I showed any curiosity about dressing differently. I knew the line between trust and exposure was thin, and I walked it carefully, craving her approval, yet fearing her judgment. The apartment we shared was small but cozy, a two-bedroom with warm sunlight streaming through the living room windows in the late afternoon. It was my sanctuary and at the same time my stage. Emma spent her days working at a graphic design studio, leaving me alone most afternoons, a perfect opportunity to explore this hidden side of myself. On one particularly quiet Tuesday, I found myself pacing nervously in our bedroom, staring at the clothes folded neatly on her bed. A soft cream blouse with delicate lace along the collar, a pleated skirt in a pale pastel that looked almost ethereal, and a pair of ballet flats that shimmered faintly in the sun. My heart raced as I imagined the transformation, imagining myself in the mirror, daring to see what it would feel like to be, for a short while, her pretty little sister. I hesitated, my mind torn between guilt and anticipation. I thought about Emma, what she would say if she knew I was even considering it without asking her first. But then a strange, thrilling thought crossed my mind. What if she would love it? What if she could help me, guide me through this, even if it was just for fun? My fingers hovered over the fabrics, trembling slightly as I felt the softness of the blouse. The thought alone sent shivers down my spine. I was both terrified and exhilarated, a mix of dread and desire that pulsed in my chest like a living thing. I knew that this could not remain just a fantasy much longer. The urge to explore was too strong. As I slipped the blouse over my head, the fabric felt cool against my skin. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and froze. The reflection staring back was familiar and strange at the same time. My broad shoulders, the shape of my hands, even my jawline, it was all me but softened, altered, transformed. I tugged at the pleated skirt, adjusting it so that it fell just right, watching the material sway lightly with my movements. When I slid my feet into the ballet flats, I felt the world shift under my weight, each step lighter, more delicate, as though I were stepping into a new identity that had been waiting for me all these years. The thrill was intoxicating, but the fear lingered. I could almost hear Emma walking through the door at any moment, catching me like a secret finally revealed. My palms were clammy as I reached for her jewelry box, selecting a simple pearl necklace. The moment it settled around my neck, I felt a sense of completeness, like this version of me had always existed, quietly waiting to be seen. I twirled slowly, mesmerized by the way the sunlight caught the necklace and the folds of the skirt. There was a fragility to this new self, but also an undeniable strength, a defiance against the life I had been living in plain sight. Then, just as I was getting lost in the reflection, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Emma. "Hey, work ran late. Don't wait up." Relief washed over me, quickly replaced by a rush of daring excitement. Alone, unobserved, I could let myself fully inhabit this new persona, explore every detail without fear of interruption. The room seemed to expand around me, the walls fading as I became someone entirely different, yet undeniably me. My hands lingered on the edge of the mirror, tracing my reflection as if trying to memorize every angle, every nuance of this transformed self. And that's when the idea hit me, crystal clear and almost audacious. What if I didn't just experiment? What if I committed fully, even if just for the evening? What if I allowed myself to be her pretty little sister completely, embracing the role in a way that would make it feel real, almost tangible? The thought was intoxicating, a heady mixture of fear, thrill, and longing. I took a deep breath, steadying the rapid beat of my heart, and whispered softly to my reflection, "Tonight, you're not just me. You're someone else. Someone beautiful. Someone I've always wanted to be." It was the beginning of something I couldn't yet name, a quiet, shivering anticipation that threaded through every fiber of my being. I knew that what I was doing teetered on the edge of secret and scandal, daring and folly. But the mirror didn't judge. The soft fabric didn't question me. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't question myself either. The game had begun, and I was both the player and the prize, teetering between fear and fascination, ready to step into a world where nothing was quite as it seemed, and every glance at the mirror held the promise of transformation. By the time I heard the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, I realized I had fully become her Alex as Emma's little sister, a delicate reflection of possibility, poised at the threshold of a journey that would challenge every assumption I had about myself, about identity, and about the unspoken power of someone who sees you fully, yet encourages you to become more than you ever thought you could be. The thrill, the fear, the delicate balance of secrecy and revelation, it all coalesced in that quiet apartment, and I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The first evening in Emma's clothes changed everything. I sat on the edge of the bed, the soft fabric of her skirt brushing against my thighs, feeling a strange combination of exhilaration and vulnerability. My reflection in the mirror was no longer just an experiment, it was becoming a part of me. Every time I tilted my head or adjusted the blouse, I could see a side of myself I had always kept locked away. It was beautiful, delicate, yet undeniably me. And yet, beneath that thrill lurked a gnawing anxiety. What if Emma came home unexpectedly? What if she saw me like this before I was ready to explain anything? The thought sent shivers down my spine, but it also fueled the excitement. The danger made it real. I began experimenting more deliberately. I tried her makeup kit, unsure of how to even hold the brushes properly. Foundation, blush, a light dusting of eyeshadow, each stroke felt foreign, yet liberating. The first few attempts were awkward. The powder smudged, the eyeliner wobbled, and I ended up with more blotches than beauty. But the mirror reflected my persistence, and slowly, carefully, I began to see transformation. My features softened, my eyes seemed larger, my expression lighter. By the time I was done, I looked like a delicate, tentative version of a girl I had only dared to imagine. My heart pounded not from vanity, but from the audacity of being so fully, yet secretly, someone else. The hours passed unnoticed. I explored Emma's wardrobe further, trying on different skirts, sweaters, and accessories, each one teaching me more about balance, posture, and the subtle art of presenting a persona. Every swish of fabric, every click of her ballet flats on the wooden floor, amplified the duality of who I was. I felt both powerful and exposed. Alone in our apartment, I could indulge in this self-expression, yet the lurking fear of discovery made it almost unbearably thrilling. The thought of Emma walking in at that precise moment, seeing me completely transformed, was impossible to ignore. It hung over me like a delicate thread, taut and electrifying. I found myself talking aloud to my reflection, asking questions, murmuring reassurances, and sometimes scolding myself for being too cautious. Relax, Alex. No one's here. Just be her, just for a while. The mirror didn't judge, but it reflected the struggle etched across my face, the mix of anticipation, fear, and the strange pride that came from mastering something I had never dared attempt before. As I practiced smiling, tilting my head, and moving as she might move, I realized this was not just about clothes or makeup. It was about inhabiting a persona that allowed me to express emotions I usually suppressed. The experience was intoxicating, addictive even. Days turned into nights, and I began slipping into Emma's world more frequently. I discovered nuances I had never noticed before. The way the fabric felt against my skin, the sound of the heels on the floor, the way certain colors highlighted my features in unexpected ways. I even began rehearsing conversations, imagining what it would feel like to meet friends or neighbors dressed like this. Would they notice? Would they smile? Would they think I was strange? The uncertainty both terrified and excited me. Every scenario played out in my mind, a delicate dance between risk and thrill. It wasn't just the physical transformation that consumed me. My emotions shifted with every garment, every stroke of makeup. I laughed more freely. My voice softened unconsciously, and I noticed subtleties in my expressions that were usually masked by habit. I started keeping a small notebook, writing down feelings, thoughts, and little victories: how my legs felt in tights, the pride in perfecting eyeliner, the awe at seeing my reflection fully formed in a skirt and blouse. I documented the tiny, almost imperceptible changes in posture, movement, and demeanor. It was obsessive, yes, but it was also profoundly liberating. The suspense escalated the day I decided to venture beyond the apartment. I chose a quiet park in the late afternoon, convinced no one I knew would be there. I dressed carefully, selecting a soft pink cardigan and a knee-length skirt that swayed gently with each step. My hair was styled, makeup light but precise, shoes silent yet elegant. Every step toward the door was a test of courage. I imagined running into someone I knew, the embarrassment and exhilaration mingling in my chest like an electric current. But the thrill of walking outside, being seen even fleetingly, was irresistible. The world suddenly felt larger, more dangerous, yet infinitely more beautiful. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, the soft wind brushing against my exposed arms, I felt the first true pang of anxiety. Each passing figure seemed to measure me with unspoken eyes. I noticed details I had never paid attention to before: the tilt of a hat, the color of a scarf, the way people moved with a confidence I envied. And then I noticed my own reflection in a storefront window. My heart skipped. This was me, yes, but also someone entirely new. The reflection smiled back, tentative yet proud. The sensation was dizzying, like standing on a cliff, the wind at my back, poised to leap but unsure of where I would land. Returning home, the tension hadn't dissipated. I was acutely aware of every creak in the floorboards, every sound that suggested Emma might be arriving sooner than expected. The apartment felt smaller, the shadows longer. I realized how precarious my secret really was. One slip, one unexpected knock, and everything could unravel. The idea of being discovered brought a rush of adrenaline that made my pulse thunder in my ears. I hid clothes, adjusted mirrors, rehearsed explanations in my mind. Each precaution only heightened my obsession, and each thrill only deepened my attachment to this new identity. By the end of the week, I was living in a delicate balance. At work, I remained the same Alex everyone expected: tidy, reserved, professional. But at home, alone with the world outside unaware, I was Emma's pretty little sister, a fragile, shimmering reflection of freedom. My journal was filled with observations, triumphs, and fears. I noted how my posture shifted, how my voice softened even when I spoke aloud alone, how the feel of stockings against my legs elicited an unexpected comfort. Every detail mattered. Every detail strengthened the illusion and deepened the reality. And then, one evening, the suspense reached a breaking point. I had been experimenting with more complex outfits, pairing layered skirts with delicate tops, experimenting with subtle makeup that made my eyes glimmer like never before. I was lost in a reflection, twirling slowly, marveling at the transformation, when I heard a faint sound, a key in the lock. My heart stopped. Emma was home early. Panic surged, and instinctively I darted behind the curtain, skirts rustling, heart hammering against my ribs. The apartment suddenly felt like a trap, every shadow a threat. My mind raced. What would I do if she walked in? Could I explain this? Could I keep my secret intact? Or had my curiosity finally led me too far? The seconds stretched into eternities as I waited, breaths shallow, muscles tense. The doorknob turned. Emma entered, humming softly, unaware, or so I prayed, of the spectacle hidden just behind the curtain. I could hear her moving through the living room, a brief laugh escaping her lips as she tossed her bag onto the couch. My heart pounded. This was the moment of reckoning. Every transformation, every thrill, every delicate secret now teetered on the edge. I was no longer alone in my experimentation. Emma's presence made the stakes real, immediate, and impossible to ignore. And in that instant, I understood something fundamental. Being her pretty little sister was no longer just a private thrill, it had become a shared suspense, a delicate dance between fear and exhilaration that could change everything. The days that followed were a blur of secret indulgence and nerve-wracking anticipation. Every afternoon, the apartment became a stage for the persona I had perfected, each outfit meticulously chosen, each makeup stroke deliberate. I had become almost addicted to the thrill of transformation, the way the fabrics brushed against my skin, the subtle sway of a skirt, the click of heels on the hardwood floor. I was no longer merely experimenting. I was living a parallel life, fragile yet exhilarating, all under the comforting illusion that Emma would never know. But that illusion, I soon realized, was perilously thin. It began with subtle signs: Emma's glance lingering just a second too long when she came home, a casual question about why I seemed distracted, a faint crease of curiosity in her brow. I had grown careless in my private performances, allowing myself to slip further into this other identity, unaware that the boundary between secret and discovery was vanishing. My heart raced each time she entered the room, a mix of excitement and dread, each step toward the kitchen or bedroom feeling like a countdown to exposure. One afternoon, I was meticulously adjusting a lace-trimmed blouse in front of the mirror when I heard the unmistakable sound of the door unlocking. My pulse leapt into my throat. Emma was home early, far earlier than I expected. Panic shot through me, and my mind spun frantically, considering every possible hiding place. I dove behind the bedroom curtain, heart hammering so loudly it seemed she could hear it. My reflection, visible through a sliver of mirror at the edge of the closet, showed me pale, wide-eyed, frozen in fear. Every second stretched into eternity. The soft thud of her footsteps on the floorboards amplified the terror and thrill, making my skin tingle with adrenaline. Emma entered, humming softly, completely unaware of my presence. I could hear her voice, muffled, as she called out a casual greeting to the empty apartment, laughing softly at a private thought. My breaths came in shallow, panicked gasps, and I realized with sharp clarity how much I had invested in this identity, the meticulous attention to detail, the hours spent practicing every movement, every gesture, every nuance. All of it was now at risk of discovery. I felt like a tightrope walker suspended above a chasm, each movement potentially catastrophic. I waited, frozen, until her footsteps receded. Slowly, painfully, I emerged from behind the curtain, my skirts trembling slightly with every step. The mirror reflected my dual reality: Alex, the careful professional, and this new, delicate persona I had embraced with such intensity. I felt exposed but also alive. The knowledge that I had skirted discovery made my pulse surge with both fear and pride. I was teetering on the edge, and the thrill was almost unbearable. But suspense quickly escalated beyond mere fear. One evening, Emma returned with a surprise visitor, a distant cousin of hers, someone I had only met briefly at family gatherings. The moment they stepped through the door, I realized I had no time to revert to my usual appearance. I was trapped in my transformed self, caught between the desperate need to appear normal and the impossible task of hiding what I had become. Emma's cousin, a perceptive young woman named Lily, immediately noticed the subtle changes. Her gaze lingered on my posture, the way my hair fell, the delicate flutter of my skirt as I moved. I could feel every heartbeat echoing through my chest as she tilted her head slightly, a faint smile forming on her lips. "You look different," she said softly, almost teasingly. My throat tightened, words caught in panic. Was this admiration, suspicion, or something else entirely? I didn't know, and the uncertainty was maddening. I tried to play it off with forced casualness, adjusting the blouse and smiling nervously. "Oh, just trying something new," I stammered, praying my voice didn't betray the trembling inside me. But the tension was palpable. Every movement, every glance, every breath seemed amplified, as though the world itself were watching my secret unravel in slow motion. The emotional stakes intensified when Emma, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me, suggested we take photos for a casual family album. My heart sank. The camera in her hands was like a magnifying glass, threatening to expose the delicate persona I had constructed with such care. I felt the skirt's fabric cling nervously to my legs, the heels press into my feet, and the necklace tug slightly at my neck, a physical reminder of how vulnerable I was in this guise. I tried to compose myself, forcing a smile, adjusting my posture, but inside, panic and exhilaration clashed violently. The lens clicked repeatedly, each flash of light etching my dual identity into tangible evidence. I could see the faint curiosity in Lily's eyes, the casual encouragement in Emma's, and the fragile, trembling reflection staring back at me from the mirror across the room. I realized that my secret, once confined to quiet afternoons and private explorations, was now dangerously exposed to the world. As the evening progressed, the tension became almost unbearable. I excused myself under the pretext of freshening up, retreating into the bedroom to regain control. The mirror was both friend and foe, reflecting my careful adjustments, my trembling fingers, my wide, anxious eyes. I breathed deeply, trying to steady my racing pulse, but the thrill of near discovery was intoxicating. I understood then that this journey was no longer merely about experimentation or self-expression. It had become a high-stakes dance between fear and exhilaration, vulnerability and mastery, secrecy and revelation. Then came the moment that would define everything. As I stepped out of the bedroom, I found Lily alone in the living room, casually sipping tea. Her gaze fell on me, subtle yet piercing, and for the first time, I felt truly seen, not just as Alex, not just as Emma's little sister, but as the intricate, fragile, and daring combination of both. The tension, the fear, and the thrill coalesced into a single, undeniable truth. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. I smiled, carefully, nervously, feeling the skirt swish around my legs and the heels click softly on the floor. "Hi," I said, voice light but steady. The single word carried the weight of every hour spent perfecting this identity, every secret moment alone, every trembling heartbeat. And Lily's smile, faint but knowing, was the acknowledgement I had been seeking, the confirmation that this persona, delicate and daring, was not only possible but tangible, real, and undeniable. In that instant, I realized something profound. Transformation was never just about clothing or makeup. It was about inhabiting a new way of being, embracing vulnerability, and daring to be seen fully, even when the world might judge or misunderstand. And as I stood there, balancing between fear and exhilaration, I understood that my life had changed irreversibly. The stakes had never been higher, and the thrill had never been more intense. Every glance, Every gesture, every heartbeat was now part of a high-stakes performance, teetering between revelation and secrecy, thrill and terror, Alex and his pretty little sister. The evening drew to a close, but the tension lingered. Emma remained oblivious, chatting casually with her cousin, while I felt the delicate balance of my dual identity, fragile yet exhilarating, like a secret wire stretched taut above a chasm. I knew that any misstep could expose everything I had worked so hard to cultivate, and yet, the risk only made the experience more intoxicating. I retreated once again to the bedroom, reflecting on the dangerous allure of this double life. Each outfit, each stroke of makeup, each subtle gesture had become a weapon of both liberation and suspense. The mirror stared back at me, unwavering and honest, and I realized that the game was no longer private. The stakes had escalated, and the thrill of discovery and the terror of exposure would define every moment that followed. The apartment was quiet now, the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rustle of the curtains the only sounds accompanying my racing thoughts. I had retreated to the bedroom, still dressed in Emma's carefully chosen ensemble, my heels set neatly by the mirror, the soft fabric of her skirt brushing against my legs. My heart was pounding from the evening's events, the casual, yet piercing glance from Lily, the subtle curiosity in Emma's eyes, the way every moment seemed charged with the possibility of discovery. I felt exhilarated, terrified, and completely alive all at once. I sank onto the edge of the bed, fingers brushing over the delicate lace of the blouse, and stared at my reflection. Alex, the professional, disciplined, and cautious, stared back at me from the mirror, but layered over him was the persona I had embraced, fragile, shimmering, and undeniably real. The duality was intoxicating. Every detail mattered now. The curve of my hair, the tilt of my head, the soft expression that had taken hours to perfect. It was no longer a secret hobby. It was an intricate, living part of who I had become. A sudden noise broke my reverie, the soft click of the apartment door unlocking. My pulse surged, every muscle in my body tensing. Emma's key? Or someone else? I froze, breath shallow, every nerve alert. My mind raced through possibilities, replaying the events of the evening in quick succession. Lily, the cousin, had lingered longer than I had anticipated. Was it possible she had returned? Or had Emma forgotten something at work? The uncertainty was electrifying, almost unbearable. I crept toward the mirror, using it as both shield and vantage point. My reflection seemed to mock me, daring me to stay poised, to maintain the delicate balance of this dual life. The doorknob turned slowly, and I caught a glimpse of movement in the hallway. Panic surged. Every instinct screamed to hide, to revert to Alex, to erase the evidence of this transformation before it was too late. But the thrill of being caught, the intoxicating tension of exposure, rooted me to the spot. I wanted to be seen, yet I feared it at the same time. The footsteps drew closer. I could hear them now, soft, deliberate, familiar. Emma? Lily? Someone else entirely? I adjusted the blouse instinctively, smoothed down the skirt, and clutched the delicate pearl necklace at my throat. My reflection stared back at me, a perfect combination of vulnerability and defiance. I whispered softly to myself, a tremor in my voice, "You can do this. Just breathe. Just be." The bedroom door handle rattled. I froze, every heartbeat echoing in my ears. My mind flashed through every possible scenario. A shocked gasp, a confrontation, the laughter of disbelief, questions I wasn't prepared to answer. And yet, a strange part of me wanted to be discovered, to finally reveal this hidden, delicate version of myself and see if it could survive in the light of someone else's awareness. Then a voice, soft, curious, familiar, called my name. "Alex? Are you in here?" Emma's tone carried no suspicion, only gentle concern. Relief and dread collided inside me. I wanted to answer, to emerge from behind the mirror and acknowledge the duality I had embraced so fully. But the risk, the tension, the delicate balance of secrecy and revelation held me frozen in place. Another pause. Footsteps shifted closer. The floor creaked softly under weight I couldn't see. My pulse thundered, and I clutched the fabric of the skirt, feeling its delicate threads slip through my fingers. The room seemed impossibly small, every shadow a threat, every sound magnified. I realized then that this moment, this instant suspended between fear and daring, was the true transformation. Not the clothes, not the makeup, not the persona, but the realization that I had stepped into a life that demanded courage, subtlety, and resilience. The doorknob turned slowly, the door creaking as if deliberately testing my nerves. I held my breath, every sense heightened. And then the handle stopped. A shadow fell across the threshold, familiar and undefined. My reflection in the mirror stared back, wide-eyed, trembling, poised on the knife edge of revelation. I could sense Emma's presence, but not yet see her. The suspense was unbearable. And then a soft laugh, low and teasing, echoed through the hallway. My heart leapt. Was it Emma? Or was it Lily? Or had someone else discovered my secret in ways I hadn't anticipated? The uncertainty wrapped around me like a physical force, thrilling and terrifying all at once. I wanted to move, to speak, to react, but the delicate balance held me in place, a perfect, suspended moment of fear and exhilaration. I could feel the silk of the skirt against my legs, the cool metal of the necklace against my skin, the soft pressure of the heels on my feet. Every sensation heightened the tension, every heartbeat marking the possibility of discovery. I realized that this was the ultimate test, not of appearance, not of transformation, but of my ability to navigate the fragile line between exposure and secrecy, between fear and exhilaration. The shadow shifted slightly, a footstep approaching closer to the bedroom door. My pulse raced, my breath caught, and I whispered once more to my reflection, "No matter what happens, you're her. You're Alex. You're both. Be strong." And then, just as the hand touched the door handle, the story paused. My reflection froze in the mirror, my heart pounding, the room suspended in silence. Would I be discovered? Would Emma understand, accept, or be shocked? Would my secret remain hidden, or had the delicate thread finally snapped, revealing everything I had dared to explore? The suspense lingered, unresolved, hanging in the air like a fragile crystal ready to shatter. The camera could almost capture the trembling of my hands, the slight quiver of the skirt, the wide, fearful eyes that reflected both terror and exhilaration. And as the shadow paused in the doorway, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same again. The dual identity, the thrilling transformation, the delicate balance between secrecy and revelation, they were now irrevocably entwined. And then the screen would fade to black, leaving viewers wondering, would Alex be discovered? How would Emma react? What would happen next in the delicate, suspenseful journey of becoming her pretty little sister?